This is a longer video. I wanted to create this so you could just sit gently, make a cuppa and relax into watching. These are my lived experiences and I'm really grateful to be able to share them with you all. And if you feel whether it's to share something or just say hi, please leave a comment. And thank you for watching. And if you'd like to stay connected, you're very welcome to subscribe. Thank you. The shift begins. You might notice you didn't react the same way anymore. Things that used to pull you in don't have the same hold on you. Situations that once would have had you jump in straight away, you pause now. You don't rush to fix it. You don't rush to respond. There's a space there that wasn't there before. You pause more, you think more, you start to feel things differently. And it's not that you don't care, it's that you're not automatically reacting the way you used to. You might even notice you're watching things more, taking things in, seeing things you didn't see before. And at first that can feel a bit strange because you're not used to that version of yourself. You're used to being the one who steps in, the one who carries, the one who responds. So when that changes, it can feel unfamiliar, even a little unsettling, but that space you're feeling, that pause, that's where something new is beginning. When you feel uncomfortable, because for a long time you may have been the one who adapted, the one who adjusted yourself to keep things running smoothly, the one who made sure everyone else was okay, even when you weren't. You may have been the one who kept things together, the one people relied on, the one who didn't fall apart, the one who just handles things, and you got used to that. It became normal. You didn't even think about it. You just did what needed to be done. And you were the one who responded quickly. You didn't have time to stop and think. You didn't have time to sit with things. You just moved. You reacted. You carried it. So when that starts to change, when you don't jump in the same way, when you don't respond as quickly, when you start to pause, it can feel very unfamiliar, like something isn't quite right, even uncomfortable, because this version of you isn't the one you've always known. But this discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is shifting. You start showing up differently. Before everything changes on the outside, something shifts in you. You start showing up differently. You don't explain yourself the same way. You don't rush in to fix everything. You don't react as quickly. You pause, you notice more, and sometimes you choose not to say anything at all. Not because you don't care, but because you're starting to include yourself in what matters. And that shift, it's quiet, but people feel it, even before they understand it. The truth about others, when you start changing internally, something shifts in you first. It's not always something people can see straight away, but they feel it. People feel the change in you before they understand it, before they can put words to it, before they can explain it. They sense that something is different. And that can create a reaction, even if they don't realise why. Because for a long time, they may have known you in a certain way. A version of you that always gave. a version of you that explained yourself, made things clearer, kept things smooth, a version of you that carried things, that stepped into that, held things together, sometimes without even thinking about it. And that version of you felt familiar to them. It felt predictable. They knew how to meet you there. So when you began to change, when you didn't respond the same way, when you didn't explain everything, when you didn't carry things like you used to, it can feel unfamiliar to them. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. And when something feels unfamiliar, people don't always know how to respond. They might feel unsure. They might feel a bit unsettled. They might even react without fully understanding why. Not because they're trying to make things difficult, but because something they were used to has shifted. And they're still adjusting to that change, just like you are. And this is where self-doubt can start to creep in quietly at first. You may start to question yourself, wondering if you've done something wrong because things feel different. And people are responding differently, and it can make you turn that back on to yourself. You might find yourself thinking, am I doing something wrong? Have I changed too much? Should I go back to how I was? Was I better before? And those thoughts can feel very real in the moment, because part of you remembers how things used to be, when everything felt familiar, more predictable. Even if it wasn't always right for you, it was known. And now you're in something new, something you're still learning. And that uncertainty can make you doubt yourself. You might even feel pulled to go back to old ways of responding, to make things easier, to make things feel normal again. But that pull isn't because the old way was better, it's because it was familiar. And this new way is still unfolding. Grounding truth. But the truth is, you're not doing something wrong. Even if it feels like things are shifting around you, even if people are responding differently, that doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just feels unfamiliar because you're not showing up the same way you used to. You're not reacting the same way. You're not carrying things the same way. And that can make everything feel a bit unsettled for a while. But this isn't something going wrong. This is something changing. You're just no longer available for what you used to carry. You're no longer automatically stepping in, no longer taking everything on, no longer holding things that were never really yours to hold. And that doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you've become distant or disconnected. It means you're starting to recognise where you end and where others begin. And that's a different way of being, a healthier way of being. Even if it feels unfamiliar at first, so if this part feels uncomfortable, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're learning something new. Healing doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you see. You begin to notice things more clearly, not all at once, but little by little. Things you didn't question before, you start to see differently. You notice patterns. the same situations repeating, the same responses, the same roles you've stepped into again and again. You start to notice behaviours, not just in others but yourself as well. How you respond, how you adapt, how quickly you take things on. And you begin to see just how much you've been holding. Things you didn't even realise were heavy because you were so used to carrying them. And this awareness can feel quiet but powerful, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to not knowing. You can't go back to not responding in the same automatic way without feeling it. And that can feel confronting at first, because now there's a choice. A different way of responding is there, even if you're still learning how to step into it. And that's part of the change. Emotions coming up, and sometimes old feelings start to come up too. Not because anything new has happened, but because something inside you is beginning to open. You might notice emotions you thought you'd dealt with, feelings you believed you'd already moved through, sadness, hurt, frustrations, things that seem to come out of nowhere. And when that happens, it can feel confusing, because you might think, I thought I'd already worked through this. Why is this coming back up? And it can feel like you're going backwards, like all the progress you've made is slipping away. But you're not going backwards. You're just going deeper. What's happening is you're now in a place where your system feels safe enough to bring these things to the surface. Not to overwhelm you, but to finally move through them properly, a deeper level than before. And that can take time. It can come in waves. Moments where you feel safe and moments where something rises up again. But each time it does, it's not a step backwards. It's another layer being understood, another layer being released. The in-between stage. And then there's a stage that not many people talk about, a space you find yourself in where you're not who you used to be anymore, but you're not fully settled into who you're becoming yet. And that can feel strange, because the old way of being doesn't quite fit. The way you used to think, the way you used to respond, it doesn't feel the same. But at the same time, the new way of being is still forming, still finding its shape. And so you sit in this in-between space, and that space can feel quiet. Not empty, but quieter than you used to. Sometimes lonely, not because you're completely alone, but because you feel different on the inside. Like you don't quite fit in where you used to. Conversations might not land the same. Environments feel different. You might even feel like you're standing slightly apart, watching things in a way you never did before. And that can feel unfamiliar. But this space is not a mistake. It's not something to rush through. It's a transition. A space where things are settling, where your awareness is deepening, where your new way is being is slowly taking shape. And even though it might feel quiet, there is a lot happening there. Relationships. And as you change, some relationships begin to shift, not all at once, and not always in obvious ways, but you start to notice it. Some relationships will grow. They'll meet you where you are. They'll feel deeper, more real, more aligned with who you're becoming. And those ones you'll feel the difference in a good way, but some relationships may start to feel strained. Not because there's been an argument, not because anything has been said directly, but because something underneath has changed. The way you show up is different. The way you respond is different. And that changes the dynamics. And then there are some relationships that may begin to fall away quietly, without a big ending, without a clear moment where you say this is over. They just don't hold in the same way anymore. And that can feel hard because you might still care. You might still value the history, but something about it doesn't fit like it used to. And it's important to understand this isn't always because anything is wrong. It's not always about someone doing something bad or you doing something wrong. Sometimes it's simply because the dynamics have changed, the role has shifted, and when the roles shift, the relationship naturally changes with it. So if you're in this space right now where things feel different, where you can sense that something has shifted, even if you can't fully explain it, and people around you are reacting differently, or things just don't feel the same as they used to, I want you to hear this and really take it in. You're not losing yourself. Even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels a little uncertain at times, you're not losing who you are. You're meeting yourself in a way you haven't before, a quieter way, a more aware way, a more honest way. And that takes time. It takes patience. It takes being willing to stay with yourself even when things feel different. So if you're here right now in the space of change, just know you're not going backwards. You're not doing it wrong. You're becoming something new. And that's wonderful.